Good day, everyone. Today, as promised, with the Abyss reset, I'll be trying out a team with Kokomi that I think at least she would work well in, or at least she can't really easily be replaced, and then compare it tomorrow with Raiden, Jincho, Xiangling, and Bennett to see how it performs against that team. Now, as for my Kokomi herself, she is obviously not at the ceiling of what a Kokomi could be in any ways, but at the same time, I don't think she's particularly poorly built either. To get a better idea of how much damage you could get out of Kokomi if you'd fully leveled her stuff and so on and so forth, with an Ascension and the 10 levels I usually saw with the artifacts and weapons that I'm using about a 5,000 HP increase, which should translate into just under a 15% increase to the ultimate part of her normal attacks. And as her talents for me are 666. If you leveled both the normal attack and the ultimate both to 10, you probably see somewhere in between like a 26 to 30% damage increase there as well. So while mine is hitting around the 5,000 range for normal, if you fully leveled her and leveled these to 10, you could probably get about the same Kokomi that was in the trial, where she's dealing about 7,000 damage for a normal attack, which I do have to say I'm rather surprised about, as I thought we'd be able to get higher than that, but I suppose her weapon probably made a decent portion of her damage during the trial. In terms of weapon which I'm using, I'm simply using a level 90 Refined 5 Thrilling Tales of Dragon Slayers, which I leveled specifically for her, as you could use. However, the damage increase that it's going to give you is so minimal, as she simply doesn't really deal that much damage, that I think giving a different character a 48% attack bonus is far more beneficial than increasing her normal attack damage by like maybe 200-300 per normal. And so the only reason I would use the is if you weren't running a battery like, say, Raiden, or you weren't using a Hydro battery with Jincho. Though again, if you're using Jincho, I don't think there's any reason to be using Kokomi. Now, in terms of the artifacts, so you can see sort of where we're at here as well. Some are pretty great, some aren't. We can take a look at our flower, which is pretty dang good. It's 15% HP, 9% attack, and 16% energy recharge. Flower is also pretty dang good. 15% HP with 15% attack. As we have HP in the main stat, unfortunately we can't have HP percentage down here, so this is fine. It's not great, but there's not much that we'd be able to gain from the substats here anyway. Our Hydra damage bonus goblet isn't fantastic, but it's not awful. It's got some flat HP and some attack percentage, and it's a very similar story here with the circlet, though a little bit better. We got 9% HP. This is somewhere along the lines of having like another 6 or 7% HP value, and then 5.8% HP. So while her gear isn't perfect, it's still pretty good. And in terms of offensive stats and just stats that she would like, she's certainly in a better position than, say, my Ayaka, who has pieces that basically have nothing on them at all. Or that have something, but it's not exactly a whole lot. It's one growth into something that she actually wants, and no other substats that she'd like. So, in comparing them to other characters that I have, her growths have actually been pretty decent. Now, in terms of how I felt the team performed, I thought it was decent. Like, they worked together pretty well, though at times it still felt like I wasn't sure if I really should be actually even attacking on Sagnomiya and just not maybe use Ayaka to attempt to get more freezes instead of vaporizes for Xiangling. But all in all, I do think it probably performed okay-ish. Raiden performed decently as a battery for everyone, though not enough of a battery for Xiangling such that she would be able to use an offensive weapon instead of the Favonius Lance. She gives enough energy to Kokomi such that she can use her ultimate mostly off cooldown. And its Ayaka isn't the main here, and so she isn't quite getting as much energy as she would if she was the carry. She's kind of in the case of lacking energy, but it's okay. And Kokomi can allow Ayaka to freeze, which in turn can allow Xiangling to either vaporize or melt. And then once Ayaka's ultimate is over, we can get to Raiden to allow Xiangling to be vaporizing and overloading at the same time. I'll try tomorrow to go through the Abyss in essentially the same way, but with this team comp instead, to compare, because after all, if this team performs just as well or better with 3 4-star characters versus 3 rate up 5-star characters, and this at the moment is really the only team I can think of to put Kokomi in where it doesn't make more sense to just replace her with someone else. I think that really will kind of show just how not fantastic of a character she is. But I think that'll probably be it for me, as I don't really think there's much to comment on through this abyss at this point, and so we'll just leave you to watching the clears. I guess the one other thing I should mention is I decided to try a little bit of a different Hu Tao team comp than I usually would, which works fine, but I don't think I'd probably use it again. By throwing Bennett into the group, which allows me to have a healer and who is Pyro, which means I can throw Sucrose into the group to give Hu Tao 40% resistance shred and significantly more elemental mastery. And in order to help curb Bennett's healing so it's not as much of an issue when playing with Hu Tao, I replaced the majority of his gear with some completely unleveled instructor pieces. So for the flower, I went with a 3-piece. You could, of course, also go with no flower at all. However, because I still want to be able to get his ultimate up as fast as I can, I still wanted to be able to have his timepiece for that 51% energy recharge, and 430 health isn't going to exactly be too harmful. And in doing this, I cut my already not super high health Bennett in half, and so makes him much more usable with Hu Tao. And so with all that out of the way, let's hit the abyss.
みんなは吸引テスト開始。安全距離確認。無双の風。この件はわかるかい？光を意識となる。病原のチャンス。困るね。やはりダメだった。6308式ユニット。雨描き型しゆるここの日についてるかい？いってらっしゃい。おいここまでやはりダメだった。それでどうだ？くらいおいよっ裁きの雷ソーランのイコ神里流と浅味でしょはい海のちぎりよへいはっふっとはっせいふっへいここより弱滅の時てっふっはっはっせっふっふんてっよっふっ失礼見切りました。雪を前了解。ソーランの憩い深海のカゴとふっせい歌よに
みんながそばに。
6308式ユニット超格差決算
みんなは俺が。
吸引テスト開始6308式ユッキおい安全距離確認7号式モジュール
全力攻撃。
いってらっしゃいおい
雨描く。
ソーランの一個料理の時間だよ話が通じないやっ深海のカゴここより弱滅の時やっ
捕獲完了。
はっやっご安心を
神里流消滅。失礼。
海のちぎりよ
どこにいるのか聞かせてもらう。無礼者。かがむ。
踊りなさいはあはあご助力をやっ
失礼。
熱々でしょそれ
捕獲完了。
ややは
ノック。
吸引テスト開始6308
みんながそばにいてくれるわ。雨描きがたし。歌よに。
おいさよなら
みんなは俺が。
安全距離確認吸引テスト開始
ありうる。
ご安心を
桜吹雪。
料理の時間だよ話が通じないあれ狂いなさいへいはっ失策ですはっはっうおた火を
ここより弱滅の時。せっはっ見切りました。踊りなさい。
ご助力をふっせいやっほっはっ
失礼。
熱々でしょはい
逃げ道はありません。稲光すなわち永遠なり。 踊りなさい。ソーランの憩い。雪を前へ取った。料理の時間だよ。ウニのちぎりよ。せいはっといっはっはっふっはっ。踊りなさい。
無我の境地。よし。せっ。ふん。さっ。ふん。よし。せっ。はっ。てっ。
話が通じないなら
桜吹雪。
失礼。深海のカゴ。せいふっはっとやっせい。
稲光、すなわち永遠なり。
みょ。